It happened last year. I was on Mars, working as a junior engineer. I thought this would prove myself in an industry filled with veterans. Most days were similar, inspecting the base camp and studying the red soil. I felt the isolation. It was strange, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. One day, while inspecting the perimeter, I saw something odd. Buried under sand, there was a hatch, half hidden from view. I hesitated, but curiosity pushed me forward. I brushed away the sand and knocked on it. It sounded hollow. My heart raced. Maybe it was just an old storage area? I fiddled with the lock, and to my surprise, it budged. I forced it open. The air that rushed out was icy. It didn't feel right, and I can't explain why. I peered into the pitch-black space below. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to turn back, but I couldn't. I stepped down, feeling the dry, dusty surface beneath my feet. The darkness surrounded me. As I moved deeper into the facility, I found strange machinery. Nothing resembled anything I had seen before. My gloved fingers brushed against the cold metal. Markings covered the walls. They looked like writing, but I couldn't understand it. My equipment began to short-circuit, flickering. I thought I heard a voice, but I dismissed it. Just my imagination, I told myself. Days passed, and I felt uneasy. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The strange writing appeared everywhere, almost like it was following me. On the surveillance feeds, I began to see figures darting through the shadows. They moved too fast for me to make out. Each time I checked the screens, my breath quickened. I felt colder, like the life was being drained from me. Sitting alone in my quarters, I tried to convince myself it wasn't real. Those feeds had to be malfunctioning. Each time I ran diagnostics, I hoped to find something wrong. Instead, I only felt the knot in my stomach tighten. What was happening down there? What were they building? One night, as I monitored the feeds, I saw one of those figures stop. It turned toward the camera. My heart sank. There was nothing there, just shadows. I blinked. Had it moved? I wanted to scream. If only I had never opened that hatch. Something dark and unknowable stirred inside me. I felt trapped. I struggled to focus on my work. My colleagues noticed I was acting strange. They kept asking if I was okay. I wanted to tell them, to show them the feeds, but I couldn't find the words. I felt the truth deep inside me, twisting tighter. I have been thinking about that facility ever since. I'm sure I'm not alone on Mars anymore. But what haunts me isn't just the figures, it's what they represent. I know I should have left it alone. I can't forget the feeling of eyes on me. What was lurking in the shadows? What did that underground facility truly hold? The next day, I decided I couldn't ignore it anymore. The unease had become unbearable. I told myself I needed answers. I gathered my gear, determined to return to the hatch. Staring at its gaping darkness, I felt a mix of fear and determination. What if I found something tangible? What if I could finally prove I wasn't going crazy? With each step down the metal ladder, I could hear the echoes of my footsteps. The chill hit me like a wave. I took a deep breath and switched on my flashlight. The beam sliced through the darkness, illuminating the strange markings again. They pulsed, almost as if they were alive. I shivered. As I moved further down the hall, I noticed a door slightly ajar to my left. It hadn't been there before, I was sure of it. Was I dreaming? The space felt different, charged. I approached the door slowly and pushed it open. The sight inside shocked me. A vast chamber opened up. It was lined with intricate panels, glowing a faint blue. I glanced around in awe. Directly ahead was a large console, its screen flickering like it had a life of its own. I felt drawn to it. It was a mistake. When I moved closer, a series of symbols appeared on the screen. They shifted and changed, strangely mesmerizing. My heart raced again. What was this technology? I reached out, feeling the warmth radiate from the console. The moment my fingers made contact, the screen changed dramatically. A series of images flashed: spaceships, metal structures, and strange creatures I couldn't recognize. I pulled my hand back in shock, when I heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, cutting through the silence. It felt like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I strained to listen, but the words were drowned out, like trying to catch echoes in a tunnel. Panic surged through me. There it was again, a quick movement in the shadows. My breath quickened, and I instinctively moved closer to the exit. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The figures from the surveillance feeds felt closer now. I turned back toward the console. Whatever it was trying to show me, I needed to understand. But my instincts screamed at me to leave. Something was wrong. The air felt heavy, electric. Suddenly, the lights flickered above, and the whispers grew louder. My heart thudded in my chest as I took a step back, my hand grazing the console again. The images returned, faster this time. I could see the figures more clearly, darting in and out of sight, their forms shifting. They weren't just shadows, they were something else, something alive. Then everything went dark. The lights above shut off completely, and the chamber was enveloped in silence. I froze. My flashlight flickered, then went out. My pulse raced, pounding in my ears. I was blind in the dark. In that moment of fear, a thought struck. What if I was never meant to find this place? The shadows weren't just watching, they were waiting. I turned to run, but something blocked my path. I felt a cold breath against my neck. Fear gripped me. Someone or something was right behind me. I spun around, heart racing, ready to confront the darkness. I barely had time to register my panic before I was pushed back by something solid yet intangible. My instincts kicked in, and I stumbled sideways, narrowly avoiding an unseen force. It felt like a cold wind swept through the chamber, sending chills down my spine. "Who's there?" I cried out, my voice echoing in the darkness. No answer. Just that pregnant silence that made my skin crawl. I reached out again, hunting for the console, trying to regain my bearings. My fingers found the cool metal of the surface, and I pressed my palms down, desperate for anything to hold onto. The lights flickered back on, but the glow was dimmer, almost sickly. The symbols on the console shimmered in a way I hadn't noticed before, and I squinted at the screen. It displayed a set of coordinates, flashing rhythmically, as if inviting me to follow. They were coordinates to a point on Mars itself, somewhere distant and unknown. Something stirred in the corner of my eye, and I whipped my head towards it, heart racing. There, in the shadows, I caught a glimpse of movement. A figure, distorted and, strangely, almost transparent, lingered just beyond my line of sight. My blood ran cold. "Show yourself!" I shouted, more bravely than I felt. The figure stepped forward, and for a moment, I thought it might be a person. But the face was unnaturally elongated, the features blurred like a long-forgotten image. Then it spoke, or rather, the whisper returned, clearer now. "Decipher, before it's too late." I recoiled, confusion mixing with dread. What did it want? Was this being a warning? The console glowed brighter, and the images changed again. This time, I saw structures half buried in red dust, machinery that buzzed and hummed with energy. And then, a flash of destruction, a fiery explosion that consumed everything in its path. The room began to vibrate, the thrumming noise intensifying. I had to get out. I turned and ran for the exit, heart pounding in my chest. But as I reached for the door, it slammed shut. I was trapped. Desperate, I pounded on the metal surface, shouting for it to open. The figure moved closer, its presence heavier now, more defined. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped. "Find the truth," it urged, its whisper wrapping around me like a vine. Before they find you. I felt a pull toward the console again, a compulsion to interact, to discover whatever secrets were buried there. I hesitated, looking back at the shadowy figure. It wanted me to listen, to understand. But what was the truth? And who were they? The floor trembled beneath me, and a low growl reverberated through the chamber. My breath hitched. Something was coming. I needed to make a choice: dive deeper into the mystery or fight my way out of here. I grasped the console, fingers hovering over the keys. Then, with a last glance at the figure, I pressed down hard. What happened next would change everything. The console responded instantly. Lights flashed, a whirlwind of colors illuminating the room. I felt a surge of energy coursing through my fingertips as screens filled with data and images spun into view. My heart raced. Whatever I had triggered felt monumental. The images shifted again. This time, I saw blueprints, detailed diagrams of vast structures nestled within the Martian surface. They were interconnected, forming a network that seemed both complex and intentional. I squinted, trying to make sense of the scrambled text overlaying the schematics. Words like Project Genesis and Containment Protocol caught my eye, sending chills down my spine. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed behind me. I turned, instinctually bracing myself against the console. The figure loomed closer, its features still a blur but more defined now, almost urgent. "You must listen," it whispered, its voice a strange blend of desperation and authority. "The past is alive here. It holds the key." Before I could respond, I heard another noise, a clatter like metal scraping against metal. My eyes darted back to the door. It began to pulse, as if something were trying to break through from the other side. Panic set in again. I was losing time. I focused on the console again, heart thumping loudly in my ears. If it held the truth, I had to decipher it. I started typing, my fingers moving faster than my mind could register. The console responded with more data, but it was overwhelming. Maps, coordinates, timelines, everything felt like it was crashing down around me. I seized a fragment of information that jumped out, a date. The previous year, with a jolt, I remembered the stories, the whispers of an underground facility. They had been dismissed as rumors, conspiracy theories from those who had spent too much time gazing into the red dust. But here it was, buried deep in the data. Project Genesis, I murmured, the words tasting bitter. Was it really connected to the rumors I'd scoffed at before? Had someone unearthed something dangerous? Then everything shifted. The console screen flickered and went dark. The room fell into a heavy silence, the pounding on the door ceasing, leaving only my frantic breathing. I was alone, cloaked in darkness once more. What just happened? I whispered urgently. I looked around, my pulse racing. That's when I saw it etched into the floor, faintly glowing, were symbols that mirrored the designs from the blueprints. It was a message, a warning, or perhaps a guide. Whatever it was, I felt a magnetic pull to it that I knelt down, tracing the symbols with my fingers. The moment they connected with my skin, a shockwave coursed through me. Images flooded my mind, views of the complex buried beneath, frantic scientists, and something emerging from the depths, something not meant for the surface, and then, out of the corner of my eye, shadows shifted again. I didn't feel alone anymore. I shot back up, heart racing. Someone or something was watching me. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. The room was dark, but I could sense a presence lurking just beyond my line of sight. I turned slowly, scanning every shadow and corner. My instinct screamed at me to run, but curiosity pinned me in place, heart pounding. As I stood there, I remembered the symbols, those strange markings on the floor. Maybe if I could make sense of them, I could confront whatever was watching me. Taking a deep breath, I focused on the glowing script. I felt a connection to the blueprints and the haunting images I had seen. They seemed to call out, begging for attention. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, resonating in my bones. The console flickered back to life, illuminating my surroundings again. I quickly glanced at the screen, hoping it would provide answers or at least distract me from the shadows. Search parameters, I muttered, typing as fast as I could. Project Genesis Underground Facility, what are you? The screen burst with data once more, but this time it included biohazard warnings, containment protocols, and years of reports detailing experiments gone wrong. It was alarming and surreal. I felt like I was peering into a hidden nightmare, a truth that should never have been unearthed. A sudden scraping noise echoed again, pulling my attention away from the console. The door. I took a step back, fear prickling at my spine. The pounding resumed, louder and more frantic. Whatever was on the other side was determined to break in. I darted to the console, my mind racing. I had to find a way out, or at the very least, learn more about what or who was waiting for me. There had to be a map or some sort of exit plan within the system. I typed in escape routes with trembling fingers. Just as the screen populated, the door shuddered violently, rattling on its hinges. I had to hurry. The glowing symbols on the floor caught my eye again, their energy pulsing subtly. If only I could understand what they meant. Suddenly, I remembered the connection I felt. With time running out, I knelt down, tracing the symbols again, trying to focus. The moment my fingers brushed against them, a surge of images crashed through my mind like a violent wave. Lab equipment, terrified faces, and a bright light opening up to darkness. And then, the figure appeared in my mind, not a ghost, but something human. A scientist, I realized with horror. I pushed back against the wave of fear, forcing myself to concentrate. Above all, I had to know, what were they trying to keep contained? The door burst open. I barely had time to turn, heart racing, adrenaline flooding my veins. It was darker outside the doorway, shadows shifting like alive. The hum grew louder, echoing off the walls, drowning out the panic in my head. Then I felt it, a cold wind, filled with dread, sweeping through the room. I glanced back at the console. On the screen, something new appeared, a countdown timer, ticking down ominously from 3 minutes. I was running out of time. I stumbled backward as the door swung wide, revealing a dark hallway filled with shifting blackness. My instincts told me to flee. The countdown timer nagged at me. 2 minutes left. I was torn between the urge to hide and the need to understand what lay ahead. With my heart pounding, I darted through the doorway. The hallway stretched out before me, narrow and coated in dust. I could hear the low hum intensifying, thrumming in my ears. I pressed forward, keeping an eye on the flickering light above. Its muted glow cast grotesque shadows that seemed to whisper secrets. As I walked, I tried to make sense of my surroundings. Metal pipes jutted out from the walls, and strange devices hung from the ceiling. I spotted another console further down, its screen dark and dormant, not illuminated like the one in the room. A part of me itched to revisit the comforting glow, but I knew I had to keep moving. The countdown flashed across my mind. 1 minute and 30 seconds remained. I stopped at the window that lined the hallway. Ahead, I saw what looked like a spacious chamber filled with strange machinery. My breath caught. Was this what they were hiding? Then everything shifted. A loud crash echoed from behind me. The door I'd just come through slammed shut. I whipped around, dread rolling through me. Shadows gathered at the edges of my vision. I was trapped. I felt the walls closing in. Come on, I whispered to myself, forcing my feet to move. I needed to find answers. I approached the chamber entrance, peering inside. The room was dim, but I could see scattered papers and broken remnants of lab equipment. One sheet caught my eye. It bore a familiar symbol, the same that had glowed on the floor. Suddenly, a loud thunderous sound resonated from the machinery, as if something had been activated. The ground beneath me trembled. I turned my gaze to the chaos unfurling in the chamber. A large container, once sealed, started to hiss as steam poured from it. My heart raced. What was inside? In the chaos, I caught sight of movement. Silhouettes emerged from the mist, converging toward me. Panic gripped me. I was not alone. There's still time. I yelled, my voice shaking. Time felt like a ticking bomb in the back of my mind as the figures drew nearer. They weren't human. Their shapes were distorted, with elongated limbs and heads unnaturally shaped. I turned back to the chamber, desperate to reach the safety of the console. Maybe it could provide something information, a way to escape before whatever was emerging became fully visible. Find out what we were hiding, a voice whispered from the shadows. Just then, I caught a glimpse of a face, or what I thought was a face. Its eyes glowed, and suddenly the countdown on the screen blared again. 10 seconds left, that's when I saw it, a fragmentary shape darting behind the machinery, moving closer. I felt my heart drop as the countdown hit 0. The room vibrated violently as the door sealed shut behind me, and then, everything went dark. I gasped, the air suddenly thick around me. Panic washed over me as the oppressive darkness closed in. I reached out, my fingers brushing the cold, metallic surface of the console beside me, searching for anything light, answers, hope. I pressed random buttons, desperate to trigger a reaction. Only silence greeted me. Then, a faint whirring filled the chamber, followed by a dim blue light that flickered to life. I squinted, trying to see through the thick shadows. The shapes drew closer, their movements unnatural, like marionettes manipulated by unseen strings. Stay back! I shouted, my voice wavering. Out of the darkness emerged a humanoid figure, its features unsettlingly familiar yet distorted. Its elongated limbs seemed to bend in ways they shouldn't, giving it an eerie grace. I took a step back, my heart racing as I felt the wall behind me. Help us, it said, its voice a distorted echo that sent chills down my spine. Help you? I stammered, every instinct screaming for me to bolt. What do you want? It pointed toward the large container, still hissing and emitting tendrils of steam. Inside, questions answered. But danger approaches. Danger. My heart seized at the thought. I glanced back at the chamber entrance. Whatever had sealed the door was still looming over me. The countdown echoed in my mind, a reminder that I was running out of time. Why should I trust you? I yelled, desperation lacing my words. Because you are here for a reason, the figure replied. You must choose before they find you. With a glance at the container, I saw something shimmering within the steam. I had come this far, my own curiosity battled with the urge to escape. You have to make a choice now, it said. I could hear the urgency in its voice. I don't even know what's happening. I shouted back, frustration boiling over. Find the truth. Open it. The figure insisted, extending its hand towards the container. That I hesitated, the conflicting instincts of flight and inquiry battling inside me. I felt the air shift behind me as the shadows grew restless. Whatever I was avoiding was coming closer. That I shot a quick glance at the door, no way out. Then, in a burst of reckless determination, I turned back to the container. I stepped forward, reaching for the latch, heart pounding like a drum in my ears. As I pulled it open, the steam billowed out, cloaking me in its mist. My vision blurred, but then sharp outlines began to break through the vapor. I gasped as I leaned in closer. That's when I saw it, an array of strange devices, pulsating energy, and something that looked like a map of the facility. The figure hovered nearby, watching intently. What is all of this? I whispered, a mix of awe and dread washing over me. You'll understand. But hurry. Before I could process their words, an explosive sound echoed through the chamber, and the lights began to flicker uncontrollably. The shadows deepened, and the figures started to converge. They were closing in. I had no choice. I had to uncover the truth fast, before it was too late. I leaned in closer, my breath hitching in my throat. In the dim blue light, I could make out a faint inscription etched across the map. It depicted twisting tunnels and chambers that spread like veins through the surface of Mars. Each line pulsed gently, almost like it was alive. I reached out, my fingers trembling as I traced the paths with my fingertips. Time is short. They are close, the humanoid urged, shifting anxiously. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the entrance. The reverberation sent shockwaves through the ground, and I spun around, heart racing. Shadows twisted and churned in the flickering light. I didn't know who or what was coming, but I could feel the presence, thick and heavy like fog. "Do you see that?" I asked, drawing back from the map and focusing apprehensively on the doorway. My instincts screamed for me to run. "Yes. But you must prepare." The figure insisted. "Prepare for what?" Panic seeped into my voice. "Deactivate the locks. The map will guide you. Go." It shouted, and its urgency pushed me into action. I tore my gaze from the growing darkness and focused on the devices in the container. There were buttons, switches, and even a pulsing orb that seemed to vibrate with energy. Which one would deactivate the locks? The questions raced through my mind as I fumbled with the objects. I grabbed the orb, feeling a strange warmth radiating from it. There were no instructions, this was guesswork at best. "Trust yourself." The figure called out, their voice a wall of sound against the chaos. I hoped it was right that I squeezed the orb, feeling a surge of energy wash through me, and it reacted immediately. The chamber shimmered with a blinding light, and an array of symbols floated up into view, filling the air with a low hum that vibrated through my bones. One of the symbols blinked rapidly, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. "That one. Press it." The figure urged, and I slammed my palm down on the symbol. With a loud clang, the locks on the main door rattled violently, and I turned just in time to see it start to slide open. But the sound of shuffling feet grew louder behind me. Whatever was out there was almost here. "Go. Now." The figure shouted as the chamber shook under the weight of whatever was approaching. That I darted towards the now partially open door, adrenaline pushing me forward. I squeezed through the gap just as two shadowy figures burst into the room. Their features were indistinct, but their intentions were clear. They were after me. I tumbled into a long, dark corridor. I stumbled forward, nearly losing my footing. The map pulsed in my mind, its coordinates guiding me further into the depths of the facility. As I skidded to a stop, the shadows followed close behind, driven by a primal urge that chilled me to my core. What was being built here? What secrets did the map hold? And who or what was chasing me? Every question ignited a flicker of fear in my chest. I took a deep breath and began to run. I had no choice but to find out the truth, even if it meant confronting the darkness within. The corridor stretched out before me, dark and foreboding. I pressed on, desperate to stay ahead of the shadows that threatened to close in. The map in my mind pulsed with urgency, drawing me deeper into the bowels of the facility. I had to trust it, even if I didn't understand how or why it was leading me. I glanced over my shoulder, my heart racing. The figures were gaining on me, their silhouettes flickering in and out of the dim light. Panic surged. A tightness gripped my chest as I picked up speed, my feet pounding against the metallic floor. I could feel their breath on my neck. Whoever they were, they wanted me. Suddenly, the corridor opened up into a vast chamber. I skidded to a halt, taking a moment to catch my breath. The walls were lined with strange machines that throbbed with a rhythm that felt both foreign and familiar. In the center, a colossal platform loomed over me, pulsating like a heartbeat. I felt drawn to it, the map guiding my steps with relentless precision. The air crackled with energy as I approached, and I felt a surge of something I couldn't name. My fingers brushed against the surface as I spied a small console embedded in the side. It looked like a control panel, but it was unlike anything I had ever seen. "This is it," I whispered to myself, a mixture of dread and excitement flooding my veins. I turned back, realizing the shadows had paused at the entrance. They hesitated, their dark forms barely visible in the dim light. I had a moment, but I wasn't sure how long it would last. I studied the console, hoping against hope that I could figure it out quickly. The interface was bizarre, filled with symbols that made no sense. I could hear the faint whispers of the figures behind me, and with every passing second, they sounded nearer. I had to act that I hesitated, then pressed a glowing blue icon at random. The chamber erupted into chaos. Lights blared to life, flooding the room with brilliance. The machines around me hummed, vibrating with newfound energy, and the shadows flinched at the sudden illumination. From the console, a holographic display flickered into existence. A map of the facility sprang forth, revealing vast networks of tunnels and rooms interconnected like a web stretching across Mars. My heart dropped when I noticed symbols marking various locations, each one pulsating ominously. What's being built here, I breathed, my voice barely audible. The realization hit me like a punch. This was more than a simple construction, something significant was happening, and I was at the center of it. But then, a shadow lunged from the entrance, breaking the temporary trance. I spun around, eyes wide. One of them, the darker figure, stepped into the light, revealing an unsettlingly familiar face. My stomach dropped. It was someone I thought I knew, someone I had lost. "Why are you here?" I stammered in disbelief. This encounter felt like a knife in my chest, but I couldn't process it fully. I had just learned something crucial, and I needed to escape. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered once, and an unnerving silence enveloped the chamber. The map pulsed weakly in my mind, a heartbeat fading away. My stomach twisted with dread as I realized the shadows had moved closer, drawn by the shift in energy. I needed to run, but I was frozen, caught between the past and an uncertain future. Would I find answers, or was this just the beginning of something worse? The darkness pressed in around me, thick and suffocating. I stumbled back into the shadows, trying to stay hidden from the figure that had haunted my memories. I couldn't fathom what lay in front of me, a distorted reflection of someone I used to know, and the fear enveloped me. I had to get away. Time was slipping through my fingers. I wrenched my gaze from the figure and spun back to the console. I had to act quickly. Every choice felt like it could be the last. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the holographic map flashing before me. I focused on the nearest exit. The coordinates pulsed enticingly, urging me to trust in the path they indicated. Whatever lay ahead could possibly be my salvation. Taking a deep breath, I pressed another of the glowing icons on the console. The room around me vibrated, and the massive doors I had glimpsed earlier shuddered with energy but remained stubbornly closed. Anxiety shot through me. I was running out of time. My fingers danced over the panels in desperation as surreal sounds filled the chamber, snapping me back to the looming figures that surrounded me. Without thinking, I dashed toward the far end of the chamber, towards one of the darkened side tunnels indicated on the map. The whispers of the shadows seemed to chase me, echoing as they closed in. My mind raced, and for the first time, I questioned whose side I was on. Were the figures behind me malevolent, or were they merely lost souls, like the distorted face of someone I had once loved? I took the first right turn down a narrow passage, my breath coming in rapid bursts. The echoes of my footsteps hammered in my ears, underscored by the growing cacophony behind me. The depths of the facility felt endless as I pressed deeper into the labyrinth of metal and darkness. As I fled, I couldn't shake the sense of being drawn toward something, a culmination of unseen forces urging me deeper. I stumbled upon a massive chamber, the walls lined with more machinery, glistening and pulsing, a rhythmic heartbeat that thrummed in the silence. The console flickered to life once more, and before my wide eyes, an array of information streamed past me, histories and blueprints of the facility laid bare. I hesitated, my instinct screaming to run, but a flicker of understanding bowled me over. I was uncovering secrets that were never meant for me, secrets about Project Genesis and the dangers it held locked away beneath layers of red dust. Suddenly, a jolt of realization coursed through me. This wasn't just my story anymore, it was part of something much bigger, something darker. The energy in the room shifted, the shadows behind me whispering louder, almost begging for acknowledgement. I knew they were connected to the secrecy that blanketed this place. I turned to face a wall filled with etchings that glowed dimly, energies moving within their structure. A flick of instinct urged me closer. Before I knew it, my hands were tracing their patterns, and suddenly, I was flooded with visions of scientists and strange creatures, flickers of a fate worse than I could have imagined. The line between knowledge and danger blurred as I pieced together a fragmented understanding of what had been unleashed, and just as my consciousness grazed the edge of revelation, the lights snapped shut, plunging the room back into chaos. I heard the shadows roar behind me, their presence surging with renewed fury. I was running out of options. I pushed through the sliding doors of the chamber, heart hammering as I burst out into the hallway. The air felt charged, crackling with energy. I could sense the looming presence behind me grow restless. I glanced back and saw the figures emerging, their twisted forms almost clear, reflecting the horror they had once hidden. Find the truth, their voices echoed as the chamber fell into chaos behind me. I darted around a corner, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. I slumped against the wall, panting as reality collided with an increasingly surreal narrative. Why had I opened the hatch? What were those things? The facility's past throbbed beneath the Martian soil, and I found myself caught in a web of unending mystery, where every answer peeled back layers of dread. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to run again. With each stride, the shadowy figures seemed to take shape around me, becoming less obscure and more threatening. I could feel their whispers trail off like fading echoes, but the urgency remained. I burst through another doorway, panic settling in my gut. Suddenly, I heard a distant, resonating rumble coming from somewhere deep below. As I pressed on, the walls trembled, as if warning me of the storms stirring in the foundation beneath. I was trapped in a moment that felt suspended in time, the threshold of discovery just out of reach, as the shadows chased me deeper into the unknown. I emerged onto a ledge overlooking a vast chamber filled with unfamiliar equipment, illuminated only by the glow of what seemed to be a living core at its center. The map pulsed inside of me one last time, and then I understood the choice before me would change everything. That I still think about it sometimes, that underground facility of secrets and whispers. I'm not sure if it was a warning or a call for help, maybe both. But the truth remains buried, and with it, an unsettling question lingers: was I meant to uncover the past, or had I opened a door to something darker? As I stand at the edge of my new life, wondering what lies beneath the dusty surface of Mars, I know one thing for sure: I'll never look at shadows the same way again.